Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett. And after 2 years and 100 plus episodes, I'm taking my first short break from recording an episode. I promise it's just a few weeks. And I've decided just to re-release a few of my favorite episodes. And today is Tim Don. Tim was episode 32. And look, Tim's been a great friend of mine for almost 25 years. And this episode was probably one of the most fun I've had in the entire series of episodes. His story is inspiring and just truly entertaining. Tim is also on the platform Any Question. You can use code anyquestion.com/r/Tim. That's anyquestion.com/r/Tim, and download the app and ask Tim any questions there. A little bit of housekeeping before we go on. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for all the support. You'd be doing me a massive favor if you could just share the show. The more listeners I receive, the more I can likely keep this podcast going. And finally, remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right, where do I start with this introduction? This man has been a fierce competitor, a peer, and a friend of mine for almost 20 years. He has an unbelievable resume of performances, which includes 4 World Championship titles, 3 Olympic Games, and a world record in the Ironman of 7 hours, 40 minutes, and 23 seconds. But this is only a part of this man's journey. 3 days prior to the 2017 Kona Ironman World Championships, where he was a heavy favourite, he was struck by a car and broke his vertebrae in his neck. His process in dealing with this incredible setback and his journey back to the top of the world is truly one of the most inspiring stories I think you'll ever hear. And I'm delighted to just have on the show one of my favourite people on the planet, a great personality in the endurance sporting world. Welcome, and thanks for joining me on Be With Champions, Tim Don. How are you, mate?
Very well, thanks, Greg. Lovely to chat to you. It's been a long time, so yeah, it's always good to have a catch up.
I know, mate. I retired the sport in 2016. We were all happy in Boulder training, and you're there, and we're all kind of doing our thing. 2017, you go off, have the most amazing year from one extreme to the other, where you go to Brazil and you do, like I just said in the introduction, that incredible Ironman of 7 hours, 40 minutes, 23 seconds. You then back it up with a third at the 70.3 Worlds, and then you decide to go break your neck. And, mate, it's been an incredible last few years. And I think the last time I saw you was probably 2016. I might have seen you briefly at some point during 2017. But, mate, a lot's happened.
Yeah, it was definitely, 2017 was definitely a year of two halves. It was, the big build-up, in the winter in Boulder. I had some good races leading up to Brazil was the main goal. And then obviously later in the year, it was Kona. I decided to not focus on World 70.3s at all, but because it was in America, Chattanooga, it was, it was easy to fly to Atlanta and drive up. And then obviously, my last easy ride before the race. Things didn't go that well. I remember coming to, touching my collarbone, going, yes, it's not broken. I can still race.
Oh man! So you were when you came to, you actually kind of felt kind of semi-normal, did you? You were able to consciously think about your collarbone.
I remember. I remember before the crash, I remember a white truck pulling in front of me and I skidded and I just put on my race tyres. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get a flat spot. And they're really hard to get on these blooming race tyres. That was what was going. Then it was about half an hour later I came round, and I know I'm going to regret saying this, especially on with yourself, is I've never broken a collarbone, touch wood. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh no, is this the time? And I was thinking I'm going to race. The next thing I remember is waking up in the ambulance. So I was in and out. I was actually lucky because there was apparently there was an Australian age grouper just behind me on the road, and he was a doctor. So he was like, apparently, do not move him, do not touch him. He saw the head on, the fact my bike had collapsed head on, and I'd kind of like rolled into the car with my neck, my chin on my chest. He said, no, don't move him. So I was very lucky, and I was very fortunate. And I don't think luck's the right word. Fortunate that there was someone who knew what they were doing.
Mate, you're a glass half full kind of guy, aren't you? Talking about how fortunate you were that the guy didn't move you after getting smashed by a car. When you were before that happened, were you feeling like pretty good about the race in itself? I mean, you've been preparing for world titles and Olympic Games and everything for half your life. Did this one feel like it was a special one, or how did you feel going into it?
I learned over the years through, I've had a long career, but I haven't done Ironman that long. And I learned a lot in Brazil, and, that the preparation is key. And I'd had fantastic preparation on paper. The numbers were where they needed to do. I could ride at 4.2 watts all day in a very aerodynamic position with having time to run a quality run. My swimming was going great. I was working with Julie Dibbins and Matt Bottrell. But yourself, when you didn't you qualify for Kona at high V, or was it World 70.3?
Yeah, I got through a back door.
It's an animal, man. Ironman's an animal. So, I always think it's arrogant to go to an Ironman thinking and expecting you're going to win. I believed I could fight for a podium, and, the fact that the World 70.3 is genuinely unprepared. I got third, and I was like the first of the Ironman, with obviously Javi winning again and Ben Canute stepping up, one of the first big 70.3, wins. And I was the first of the Ironman guys. I had the confidence, and I was relaxed and calm, but you never know. There's such a brutal race, let alone any Ironman, let alone Kona. But I'd have liked to have thought I would have been in with the mix.
Yeah, no, well, that's just it. I think half the battle just getting to these races without injury and everything. And you mentioned Javier Gomez, and when I had him on the show, we both talked about how really the battle is to get to the start line, and usually we're talking about niggling injuries or, your health, your general health, making sure you don't have a cold or sickness. But I mean, to be taken out as abruptly as you were sort of that 3 days before was really, it really shook the Ironman world. I think it shook all of us going, man, first and foremost, you're alive, you've got a young family and everything else. But then what came next was really, what was unique and very, very inspiring and special was you were flown back to the US, back to Boulder, I think, was it?
That's right. Yeah. To Denver. Yeah. Boulder. Yeah. Back home.
Now there was a decision to be made, right? So the decision was what? Take us through that.
Well, so one of my good training partners and great friends, a guy called Pat McKinnon, he had been training with me all through, the build and process. We'd been on an altitude camp to Steamboat Springs. He flew out to Kona to support the JD crew and to learn and watch, because he was stepping up and doing fantastic Ironman. He flew home the day before the race with me, so he missed everything, and he looked after me like a real champ. The only reason I could fly was because that we had an appointment with a specialist. We landed in Denver. We went straight to Boulder Community Hospital, and we saw Dr. Valesco, who is, I think, one of 5 neurosurgeons for spinal and brain in the country. So he hasn't got the greatest bedside manner, if I'm honest. He's very to the point, but damn, he knows his stuff. I've dealt with him before. In 2014, my daughter got ill, and we used him. Well, we didn't use him. We got a second opinion from him. Yes, and he literally said, he came in and he said, you got three options, but you've only got one. You can either have a Aspen collar, which is like a neck collar. You can have it fused, where they fuse C2 and C3. Or you can have a halo, but you have to have a halo. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, the soft collar, with the kind of person you are, I know. I've done Ironmans. He's an amateur triathlete. He said, you're not going to stay still enough. There's going to be complications. If you have them fused, you're going to really limit your mobility in your neck, and you're going to want to carry on an active lifestyle, and you will need another fusion in about 10 years, which is a much bigger operation. You have to have a halo. I said, yep. You're the expert. I'll have a halo. And then I genuinely was like, what is a halo? And then he described it, and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen a movie about that. And then I was like, oh sugar, that was not the best movie, was it? He said, I said, so how do we do this? Let's get it on. And he said, well, the halo guy's come in. And I was like, the halo guy. He said, he'll be in an hour. I said, look, I haven't seen my wife for about a month. Can I go and see them? So literally Pat drove me home, had a coffee with Kelly. Kelly says, oh, you don't look too bad. I said, you know what? I know I'm on some meds, but I don't feel too bad. I think that's the beauty about a broken bone is it's not, I'm not saying it's not painful, but, with ligaments, tendons, disconnections, it is real painful. yeah, and then I went back. This dude was there with a bow tie, and he had like a hockey bag that Richie Cunningham travels all around the world with his bicycle in. And he literally had all his halos in, and they're measuring me up. And yeah, about half an hour later, when the local anaesthetic, they started drilling into my head.
Jeez, just with local. So you're watching them with the drill. Oh man, for those that don't know, type in a halo or whatever on Google when you get a chance, or even just go watch the Man with the Halo documentary, which I want to get to. But that was really quite extraordinary. So they have basically 4 bolts go straight into your skull, correct? And
yeah,
how'd it go?
Yeah, 4 titanium bolts. So they shaved the back of my head, and they marked at the front. And they literally get a torque wrench that we use for our very expensive bikes, and it's a titanium bolt with a very sharp point. And they tighten a little bit on the left, then the right. That they have to do it equally, otherwise it's going to pull tension. Mm-hmm. And you'll appreciate this. So they set the torque wrench to 2 Newton meters, and it clicks, and I'm like, okay, cool. And they say we need to tighten it to 8 Newton meters. And if you look on your seat post of your full suspension mountain bike, it's only set to 6. And I was like, I'm going, yeah, just do it. And I'm just saying, okay, have you done it yet? Can you go yet? And they're going, Tim, can you be quiet, please? Can you be quiet? We need to concentrate. And I'm going, okay. And I'm just getting more agitated and anxious. And every time we hit a new torque 4, there's a big vibration. Then they start affixing this frame, and the frame goes down to your belly button. And then by the end, about an hour or so later, I was like, oh, wow, I'm glad that's done. And they're like the 2 doctors and Dr. V as well, because there were 3 of them, fitting it. They were like, oh, my gosh, we've never done it so quick. Normally the person's unconscious because they're normally in a car accident. So we're doing it to someone unconscious. But secondly, the people that we have done it to, they're normally, they have to walk around the room. They have to, calm down, and you just got it on. And I was like, well, if you'd have told me that, I was just like, let's get it on. And I was like, God, how many of these do you guys do? And they said, in the Denver metropolitan area, I think we've done 2 in the last 5 years. And I'm starting thinking, so you guys aren't experts at this? And they're like, no, we are. We know what we're doing. It was really, when I look back, it was but you know what? If I go to the doctor and I've got a sore throat, they'll look down it and say, you need antibiotics. I'm not going to question them. Do you know what I mean? You're just going to go, you're the expert. Yeah. When my coach says, I've got 2 by 40 minutes at sweet spot, I will question it. But when it comes to, and I'll fight them for it. But when it comes to medical things, we are blinded by these people who, thank goodness, are very well trained.
So were you able to keep you're often very humorous. You're cracking jokes, and you can make light of things pretty quickly. That's just who you are. Were you able to, was there an element of, were you fearful? Were you scared and kind of overcompensating with a little bit of humor, or were you really just like very matter of fact and just let it get it done?
No, I mean, absolutely. I guess that's maybe my coping mechanism.
I'm the same, mate. I'm the same. So,
talk about anything but, the elephant in the room, whether it's the race tomorrow or, this. No, there were definitely, there were times, when it was, like as you said, it's just freaking crazy. It's a barbaric. Think of modern technology. You got these rockets that are flying up and landing on floating blooming barges, yet they're still screwing titanium bolts in your head. It's so like old school, like 16th century medieval kind of stuff that. Yeah. I definitely think. Don't get me wrong. There were more than hundreds of times when it was very dark, and when I probably wasn't the nicest person to anyone that came in contact with me, especially in the first 3 weeks, because that's when the pain really hit me. And it wasn't the pain of the broken neck, because it's like a plaster cast. If you break your wrist, the plaster cast is there, and then that's fine because it's stabilizing the radial, the bone, but the plaster cast doesn't hurt you. But unfortunately for me, I had these 4 open screws that kept on, they continually for 3 months just pussed and pussed. And my wife is the one that should have the halo. She's the same.
Seriously, I think I even texted you at one point, or I don't know, maybe it was on social media, and I said, "How's Kelly doing?" More importantly, it was like, because I mean, it's But in fairness to you, I think what you went through and your behavior post that, you might look back and go, I wasn't the greatest person, or, I went through a bad moment. I don't think there's a person in the world that wouldn't, with a torture contraption on their head, which is basically what it was, a medieval torture contraption on your head, where they would continually tighten these bolts. I mean, just the thought alone makes any of us just queasy. How did you... I mean, were you lacking with sleep then? Were you able to sleep at all?
No, not at all. No, I think for the first, in fact, I don't know Tim O'Donnell. Like, I know him and I know him quite well, but we're not best mates or anything like that. Through Chris, this is a long story. You know the names, people don't, but these guys dropped a lazy boy off so I could sleep in the living room. Chris Lee and Tim O'Donnell. So they had a sectional that was missing a lazy boy, so I could sleep in it. But I couldn't even sleep in that. I had to sleep bolt upright. Any pressure from my belly button up on this, on the halo, on the brace, would alter the angle of these screws in my head. So I would, and I couldn't. When you sleep, you close your mouth unless you're a snorer. But when you sit bolt upright, your jaw drops. And Boulder, the air is so dry. So I would last probably about 20 minutes. And then I'd get like, is it cotton mouth? And I'd wake up. And literally it was like that for the first probably 3 or 4 weeks. And I was only on a codeine-based medication. And it really wasn't agreeing with me. But so I tried to come off it. And then the pain was like you couldn't believe. There was one night where I was literally in the garage looking for an Allen key to try and take this freaking thing off my head because I'd started to vomit. And when you vomit, you have this gag reflex. So as I'm gagging, the screws are digging deeper into my skull. So yeah, there were definitely, there wasn't much sleep. I couldn't focus and concentrate, and people were visiting me and I couldn't remember them because I was, the pain was just so terrible. So yeah, I was a real moody, I was real moody and miserable.
mate, I'm lost for words. I'm still visualizing you in the garage, dry heaving with these bolts in your head, trying to find an Allen key.
With Kelly going, no.
Oh, mate, I can really feel the pain now. You describe it very well. It's awful, mate. But then one of your sponsors On Running Shoes, they come up with an idea, and tell me if this is how it went. But basically to document your recovery. I mean, were you quick to say, I'm going to get back to Ironman, or was this like, okay, I'm done? What was that process like of firstly coming to terms with what has happened and then going, okay, I want to go all the way back to Ironman? I mean, was that you planting that seed or somebody else? And then tell me about also then how the documentary came about.
Yeah, I think look, you retired when you retired, and it was kind of on your terms, if that's fair to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was the same. I haven't retired yet. I'm still stupid. I'm still blooming racing, or not this year. But you want to retire on your terms, and I didn't want to retire from someone else's carelessness of their driving that would put me out. So I always wanted to get back to racing. Did I believe it was possible? In some days, yes, because the doctor had said this is your best chance. But there were other days when I was like, absolutely not. I can't even walk down the stairs. I couldn't put socks on. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't get in a car with this contraption on. But I always deep down definitely wanted to give it a go. And I was at the park. There's a park where I lived in Boulder about 500 meters away, and I'd walk there with Kelly and the kids. And my phone rang, and it was a Swiss number. My sister lives in Switzerland, and I thought, oh, that's strange. She must have a new number. So I answered it thinking it was my sister, Nicola, who you've met a few times. We won't talk about that. We're not going to talk about that, Greg. Let's not go there, mate.
That's a whole side story for everybody in the late 90s. We'll leave it alone.
And it was Oliver Bernard, who is the founder of On. And, right from the beginning, they were one of the sponsors that I would say, along with Specialized and Enduro, and let's be honest, all my sponsors. But, he'd done Ironman, he'd top 10 at Kona, and he'd phoned firstly to see how I was. And he said, look, I'm going to come to cut to the chase. The media guys here, the marketing guys here want to do this thing. They wanted to maybe do a 10, 15-minute documentary. But I said no. I said, I want to speak to you and I want to run it by you because I want to see how you react to what I'm saying. And, and I want you to think about it. I don't want you to think, Tim, you kind of have to do this for your sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, we chatted about other things and he said, think about it, get back to me in your own time, et cetera, et cetera. So, I hung up and Kelly was like, oh, you spoke to your sister for a long time. I said, no, it wasn't her. It was Oliver from On. And yeah, that's how that came about. And I said, I obviously later I said yes. They said they wanted to do it something different. They wanted to maybe use someone from outside the triathlon world and kind of tell more the story of the journey as opposed to, you see these promotional videos of people crossing the line, etc. And they didn't want it to be a promotional video. They wanted it to be a story. So that's how that came about. And they found this guy who was a British guy who was living in Oregon who had he'd done an amazing documentary about a Tibetan monk and won a BAFTA or a BAFTA for it? Or is that music? Emmy's music. So he'd won a BAFTA for it. He didn't know much about sport, so they flew him from Oregon to Boulder, and I went and had coffee with him at what's the coffee shop in Gun Barrel? Oh, I can't remember. Not Load.
I never went out to Gun Barrel. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Listen to you, North Boulder.
So hang on. How long after the surgery and the accident?
That was well before Christmas. That was about 4 weeks. I'd say about 3 weeks. I started to kind of like the pain was subsiding, and I think it was about 3.5 weeks when I first got into the gym. So it was about 4 weeks. So it was the 12th of November. And I really, I hit it off with him. He was very, very trendy, dry kind of guy. And he was really keen to do this. He didn't want to get in our faces and that. And we planned he was going to come down for a couple of like 4-day stints where he would follow me. And Franco, who manages me, he was very instrumental in kind of managing that and that kind of relationship. So it wasn't too much. And if I was having a bad day and so forth. I'll tell you a funny story that is later on. When On first saw the edit that he'd done, they said, no way can we show this. This is too dark. This is too kind of like depressing. And he was like, no, but look, it is a story of the start to the beginning and the start to the end. And in the end is, he 6 months later, he does this race, et cetera, et cetera. It is amazing, but this is the truth. And so I never saw that cut, but they had to re-edit it. I mean, there were times my screws kept on coming loose. So that I had to go in and get them tightened. And one came loose so many times that I had to get a CAT scan. I was getting CAT scans every 3 weeks of my neck. But I had to get one of my screws because it was every time they tightened it, it was going deeper into my skull. And they were worried it was going to go right through into my brain. So it was just before Christmas. So I was like, you beauty, this is good. They're going to have to take it off and I'm going to have to wear a collar. And they went, yeah, Tim, we can't tighten this anymore. We're going to have to take it out. Yes. And drill another hit hole 1 centimeter to the left. And I'm like, what? So just before Christmas, I had a 5th screw. They took the 4th one out and I had another screw blooming drilled.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, man, it was brutal.
Oh, mate, and especially when you go, oh, great, I don't have to wear it anymore. Oh, my God, that's just absolutely brutal. Did you ever see, you've never seen the other?
No, I haven't actually. In fact, I should get, now it's been well and truly gone. I'm sure Andrew's got it, somewhere, but I should see what it was. But no, it was great. And he came and he interviewed lots of my friends and, took the footage of me, obviously, the recovery when I was in the gym and when I had all my doctor's appointments and so forth. So, this sounds funny, but in a weird way, that was my therapy. That kind of helped me because when we're so goal orientated, and don't get me wrong, I love the process. I love ticking those boxes. I love seeing green in Training Peaks. We love how we get there, and everything was taken away from me. And when my goal, all of a sudden I had this goal because part of the documentary was, would you like to run Boston Marathon 6 months to the weekend of Kona? And I was like, yeah, definitely. So by making my kind of recovery so public, without a doubt, that helped me. All the messages I was getting on. If social media didn't exist, no one would have bothered writing me a proper letter and put a stamp on. And in fact, one person sent me a card with a long letter in, and that was Lauren Brandon. But so the modern technology, social media, definitely helped me through those dark times, without a doubt. So thank everyone out there for that.
and did you find then that it was like first and foremost, what was it like having you're basically a reality show. Was it strange having, the film crew in and around, or did you time it so we only want you at this time or that time, or did you come home from? Were they there at times when it really made it feel uncomfortable, when maybe you and Kelly just wanted to talk?
Or when I wanted to tell her to... No, absolutely. No, there were definitely times when it was uncomfortable for Andrew, but it was uncomfortable, but he was there. He was there, but he wasn't there, if that makes sense. In fact, he was there for my 40th birthday, because in January, it's like... what was it, 8 days after I had the halo off, had a very emotional 40th birthday party, and he did loads of filming around that. But I think it was just too emotional that none of it made the cut that everyone saw. You don't get those days back again. Absolutely. Yeah, he was there. I think, let's be honest, like the Kardashians, they're always on the best behaviour, unless it's Keanu West, whatever he's called.
Yeah, you can he is. Kardashian. Mate.
But, don't tell me that's true to life. Come on, $1 billion or not.
Did it add any pressure to you? Was it Dave McGilvray who wrote you? The race director for Boston Marathon. Did he write you, or whose idea was it to do Boston Marathon? And by sort of putting that out there, plus this documentary of this huge comeback, did it add pressure, or was it all you took it on as positive? Like you said, people were writing you, encouraging you, and that kind of thing.
I think initially it was definitely, there was no pressure. It was just a case of kind of getting round. And, when you're sitting there, going back to sport, when you sat there with your coach and you got, a 4-year build to an Olympic Games, or you got a 2-year build to Kona, which is what I had in 2017. I'd started to work with a new bike coach. That was our build. Of course, you're going to have these lofty goals, and everyone believes and everyone's pumped. And as you get closer and you do or don't make the kind of milestone targets, you either go, what have I let myself? I'm not going to be able to do this. So there were times when I thought, when the halo came off, I thought, hell yeah, the halo's off. But I remember the doctor described it as your head is a bowling ball being supported by spaghetti. And I was like, no way. I've been training. I've been getting massages of Marcus. I've been in the gym. And I remember when the halo came off, I was like, no, it is. That is the best analogy of the feeling. Wow. And I think the first week of it came off, that was not pain-wise, but mentally that was one of the toughest weeks, because I thought, halo's off. I've already been riding on the turbo. I've been walking up to an hour every day. I've been doing some mobility work, lower body in the gym. Halo's coming off. I'll be running by this time. I'll be on my bike on the road. I'll be in the pool. And 10 days later, I could hardly move, because the muscle wastage from my belly button up was just like, oh man, I had nothing. Not that I'm a big fella anyway, but I'd lost muscle, my mobility. I couldn't rotate my thoracic, let alone my neck. And no, definitely, I had to pay. That sounds very, very egotistic, but I paid to enter $390 to do Boston Marathon. There was no. I only got in because I'd done the qualifying time by breaking the world record and running a 2:44. Otherwise, I would have been starting way at the back, with the masses. Boston makes Kona look easy to qualify. It's so hard to qualify for that race.
Don't you know Dave McGilvray?
Well, it's funny. I'd never met him, I should have actually done a talk with him this year in Boston, but unfortunately, Trimania, but unfortunately it got cancelled in March due to the coronavirus. But no, don't get me wrong. I was just thankful. God, he organises a race for 30,000-40,000 people. I'm just one person.
It's such a fascinating story, mate. And just so you had the halo on for 3 months, and then it's amazing how you just lose all that muscle and ability and nervous system as well, just being able to move. Then you had another 3 months, which is not much, to try and go run a marathon. And obviously you've been working out your entire life, and there's some decent work behind you. But then you've turned up to Boston Marathon, one of the worst conditions I think Boston Marathon's ever had, right? I mean, it was beautiful. What are you on about?
Point to point, we had sleet, we had headwind, we had rain, minus wind chill factors. Bob Babbitt, I think it's the only Boston he started and not finished, because he does it in an Elvis costume, and it got so heavy and cold. I mean, I think 60% of the pro field didn't finish. It was brutal conditions. Yeah. And
you still went at 2:49. I mean, I know you probably had even loftier goals, but from what I understand, at 2:49 after 6 months after breaking your neck, 3 months of that, no sleep, sitting in a halo upright. I can't even figure out how you slept. I really feel like you must have just gone 3 months with no sleep. Actually, that's a question for you. When you took that halo off, as much as you couldn't physically move or anything, how did you sleep like a baby when you took it off?
Nope, not at all. So after about 6 weeks, I tried to sleep in the bed, and I could only sleep with literally 15 pillows. So I was bolt upright, and if you fly from Australia to America, you get cankles. Even if you do fly first class, you get cankles. I made cankles look small because I just wasn't moving, and I was upright. So we ended up having to buy one of those beds, like a hospital bed that moves for $9,000. So we bought one of these beds, and that really helped. So my legs were elevated, so my blood wasn't pooling, and I wasn't getting bed sores and stuff. But no, when the halo came off, I was like, you beauty. But literally, my muscles weren't strong enough to lay flat. I would lay flat and get spasms and cramps. So even then, I had to sleep in this kind of S shape where, where my back was upright, my bum was down, my legs were up, and then my calves were flat. So no, I didn't sleep like a baby for a good few months after the halo. But I mean, when the halo came off.
It's just insane. And then I just want to keep moving forward a little bit before we go all the way back. But the next phase is you go win. You go win your first 70.3 back in Costa Rica. I mean, how was that? Was that was that an emotional high like none other, or was that just ticking a box? Were you already sort of feeling normal and back going?
No, it was a funny thing because I was there on my own. And it's a big trip it was a big trip and it was one of those ones where you I went back to the hotel room, and I think I shouted as loud as I could, just that kind of adrenaline release. But no, I mean, I genuinely didn't expect that. Don't get me wrong, as you said, it was in Costa Rica. It wasn't a great field. There was a really good Australian, Ryan Fisher, who was an ITU guy who was there.
Very capable athlete. Yeah.
Yes, Santiago Acedo from Brazil, and Ryan got a penalty for on the bike, so that did give me a little bit of an advantage on the run. But I had a good race. I took a chance on the bike, attacked, and got a minute lead. I knew it was going to be 400 degrees, so everyone would go crazy on the first part of the run to try and catch me. And I think they got to within 30 seconds, and then everyone blew up. Well, I could just run my own pace. And it was, but then I think the kind of the high of that race was also well, if I can do this, I can go back to Kona. And then it was just kind of to go back to Kona, I know what it takes to qualify, let alone kind of try and be competitive there. And that's when it was oh, sugar, now the pressure's really on for me to, running 2:49. I ran quicker than that in an Ironman. Jan runs that on a Monday, after blooming, I don't know, tapas and sangria. I think by winning that race, it gave me enough points, and then I had to make the mathematically, it made it possible for me to try and do well in an Ironman to qualify for Kona, and race there 12 months later, or after the accident.
And you did, and what I was a little surprised. I know Ironman's got a lot of positives, so I'm not putting them down, but sometimes my my empathy or my human spirit, whatever it is, I kind of felt like, can we give Tim a start? Can we just give him the start? And it looked like you weren't going, because I think you finished top 10 at an Ironman in Europe. Was it Ironman Hamburg? I think.
That's
one
right,
of the German ones.
I had a great race there, but you see, my head's a big old thing and it's heavy and it doesn't sit straight anymore. So when you start up in the training, your whole body's off kilt. So I was getting hip issues and Achilles issues, which I haven't had in my whole career. And I think the last 3 weeks I'd hardly run leading up to Hamburg. And I came off the bike in a great position, top 3 with a big lead over everyone else. And I basically ran, 12, 15K and jogged, managed the rest. So I needed to get top 6 to qualify and I didn't. So I didn't get the points. Unfortunately.
But then it rolled down. So, I mean.
Well, no, then 2 weeks later, I went to Copenhagen Ironman to try and do it, because at that stage, Ironman offered me a slot. And I said, if you'd have offered it me last year, I would have accepted it. But I've tried to do something. No way am I going to blooming accept it. You should have done it back then, you cheeky monkeys. So I said, no, I'm okay. I'm going to try and qualify. So I went to Copenhagen, came out to swim, had a great swim, swam like 44 minutes with Jasper Svensson. We got off on the bike and he raced he raced Hamburg and he crashed right at the end and he was spiking with me. I was like, it's not a strong field. The two of us can bike away from everyone. 10K into the race, he falls off, his tire rolls and he goes, nope, I'm out. So I rode 138K on my own and then I got caught by like 8 people and I was not fit enough to do that. I came off the bike with all these guys and basically I ran to a point of exhaustion. And again, on the bike, I'd stopped and been for a number 2 because I'd got my nutrition wrong. But when they caught me, I was like, no way. And I didn't finish the race. I think I ran like 28K and I said, no way. And I hadn't qualified. I genuinely had not qualified. And I was like, yep, fair enough. I said, I'm getting in good shape to my wife. Maybe I can do some races later in the year. But right now I want to come home, see you guys and just chill. And it was 2 days later, I got up. I didn't feel too bad. I got up to go swimming. As you do, you check your social media, have a coffee, and I checked my emails. And I got an email from Heather, who's the Ironman Pro Liaison Officer, whatever that is. And apparently, the guy I was ranked 51st in the world, and the guy, or in the ranking, and the guy who was ranked 1 ahead of me had decided not to go to Kona, so they'd offered it to me. And at that stage, I was like, oh yeah, I guess I have earned it. But in my mind, I'd already made plans to go to Cozumel, do the 70.3, kind of start the build for 2019. But my wife said, you'd be crazy not to go. It's so hard to get there. You never know what's going to happen. So I did eventually qualify with a roll down slot, albeit,
It's interesting when you mentioned, I just want to go back to what you said with now your head position was sort of, to watch you run is one of the most pleasurable things you can do in terms of watching biomechanics really working well. Like I've always, from your feet, your knees, your hips, all the way through, you've always made running look pretty. You've always made it look, you've been running your whole life, but to hear that, this broken neck then changed the position of your head. Have you been able to since then sort of realign and start to feel normal, or have you been struggling with niggles since?
I don't know whether, because I'm 42 now, or I use my neck as an excuse because I'm a young kind of guy. But no, I get into a groove and I can last about 8 weeks of quality running and, see some form of myself, but then I know I have to manage it. So I'm definitely, we're never the athlete we were. We always want to be, that Swedish session that you can remember you did, whether it was in Jindabyne or Switzerland or France, that day when you hit those times, we always dream of that. Yeah, that ain't happening anymore.
No, mate. And it only gets worse once you actually, when you retire. And I look back now. I often laugh with Laura and I go, these days I'm busy sort of hitting the gym and just trying to put muscle on and kind of approaching sport in a different way. And but I look back occasionally, I'll go for a 5K run, just a little 5K run, nothing. mate, I am so exhausted when I get home. And I say to Laura, I just can't believe that we used to treat a 10K run as a loosen the legs recovery session. You know what I mean? It was like I'm just doing some homework for this video. I watched some of your Specialized Bikes did these 48 hours with Tim Don. One, I think he did one in 2011 and one in 2014. And just these huge volumes of training that you put together and these amazing times. And after you retire, you look back and you go, wow. It's like, seriously, I look back and just it blows your mind of what you were capable of when you were an athlete. So enjoy it, because in a few years after you retire, and on that, I do want to go back a little bit. And like I said to you, I've done a bit of homework for this, and it brought back so many great memories for me. You've won 4 world titles, the junior world title. I remember that clearly. And this was back in 98 Lausanne World Championships. And for the pro men, we'd raced on the Friday night. So we got to watch all the races over the weekend. And I remember watching a young Bryce Quirk from Australia. And he had, and this is the time when juniors did the Olympic distance. There was no, sprint or anything else. This is when juniors were men. And you guys were running the 10K off the bike. And Bryce Quirk, he must have had a reasonable lead, I think, a minute or two. And he's giving us this like hang 10 signal as he ran past, I've got this, guys. Yep, no problem. And then all of a sudden we're there sort of 15 minutes later, and there comes along this young British kid that none of us have seen. Cleared the field by 30 or 40 seconds, I think. And then, Bryce Quirk came in second. But it was probably the first time I ever saw you race. And I think it was mainly because I watched this very confident, and I give Bryce a hard time every time I speak to him about this, how you haven't won until you've won. But that was the first time that I saw you on the world stage where you showed this enormous promise as a 20-year-old winning, or under 20, well, we're in 19, 20, winning the World Junior Championships. But take me back and tell me about, when did you sort of first find your passion for endurance sports? And was it always triathlon, or did you start with something else?
No, I started with swimming, believe it or not. I remember, when I was 7, swimming before school and having jam sandwiches in the car, I always loved the outdoors. I'd always had a mountain bike and would bomb around. And when I went from junior school to secondary school, so it was that high school, so I was kind of like 12, 13. Then you do like school against school cross countries, and I wasn't the best, but I was running well. And one of the coaches, well, not coaches, the PE teacher, Flossie, he was called. Mr. Patterson was his proper name, but we called him Flossie. He had these big eyebrows, and we all wanted a football to play with at lunchtime from the PE department. So I'd always the one that had to go and ask him, and he'd go, "Little Timmy Don, are you going to run for me? Are you going to run for me?" And I'd say, yeah, just give us the football. And he'd grab my arm and like dig it in, it's so painful. I probably can't do that anymore. Just give us the football. Just give us the football, Flossie. That's all the boys want. I just loved running. And when I look back, I was so lucky. Sorry, it's not that I was born at the right place at the right time, but I loved running. So I joined my local running club, and then it was called Hounslow Athletic Club. Now it's called Hounslow, Windsor, Slough and Eton. And there was a guy a year younger than me called Sam Hockian, who became one of my best friends, and a guy a year older than me called Ben Whitby, who again, became one of my best friends. And on a Tuesday and Thursday evening, they'd ride past the end of my road, and I'd be on literally a 20-pound racer that I used to do my paper round on. And we'd ride there, we'd do our run session, we'd stop at the newsagents on the way home, spend £1 on penny sweets. So we'd get 100 sweets, as opposed to you get like 10 sweets. And then, we'd do that. And we'd do a long run. And then Sam went to my school, and Ben transferred schools to come to our school. So we would run a lot. So I always used to joke, they were better than me, Sam and Ben. And I used to joke I was the 3rd best runner in my school, but I was the 4th best runner in my county, because there was another guy who ended up joining my run group. And I think it was my 2nd or 3rd year, who was a lot younger than us, but damn, he was quick. And his name was Mo Farah.
Get out.
So wow. Twice a week, I would be running with Sam, Ben, who were better than Mo, and this young guy, Mo. that's where I started. And then as I got older, I realised I was definitely not as good as these guys. I mean, Sam went on to medal at the European Junior 5,000 metres. Ben went to the Commonwealth Games for half marathon. And obviously Mo went on to do what Mo Farah did. He was pretty good.
Everything.
In fact, there's I think in Mo's, I don't keep in contact with Mo at all anymore. He knows, if we bumped into each other, we'd have a good chat down memory lane. But there's a big picture of me in his book, but it's about a race, because there was a marathon guy there called Richard Narurka, who organises amazing races at the moment in Ethiopia. He organises the Addis Ababa Marathon, and he does a lot of work for charity, and he's a missionary over there. He's a medical doctor, but I think he's a 2:10 marathon runner, and he lived in the same area. So I would go to the track to do my track sessions, and I would literally have Daniel Coleman, Paul Turgat, Craig Mottram was training there, Sonia O'Sullivan. Who else was there? There was about 8 Kenyan athletes based there, because their manager was a guy called Kim McDonald, KIM International, which is now, is it Fast Pace, which is Ricky Sues took over. He was his protege. And basically, the reason that the Kenyans would come to Europe on a university visa for the local university, which wasn't a big one, called St. Mary's University. So I was just immersed into this endurance culture. I would swim in the morning, and as I drove through Bushy Park, I would literally see 15 Kenyans running in pack formation, and it was just, that was my passion, running growing up. I truly wanted to be a runner, but I wasn't good enough, and I didn't particularly want to get a job. So I got when I was at school, I got a job as a lifeguard, and I joined the local triathlon club, which Spencer Smith was a member of. As I say, it's like that 10,000 hours. I was in the right place at the right time. There was a guy a year younger than me who was even more serious about triathlon than me, called Stuart Hayes. And he had a younger brother who was 10 times more talented than all of us, called Dan Hayes. We were trained at the same triathlon club. His coach was Bill Smith, who coached Spencer Smith at the time. It was just like, when I look back, it was a who's who of endurance sport. It was like the old school boulder on the outskirts of London.
A quick mini break before we go on. You can go check out Any Question. You can go check it at the App Store, Any Question, one word, or you can go to anyquestion.com/r/Tim to ask Tim any follow-up questions from this podcast. What's the book called? The 10,000 hour rule, where he actually talks about there's hard work, there's talent, but the final ingredient is opportunity. And when the names that you have just dropped, basically we're talking about the greatest endurance athletes in the world of the 90s. Paul Turgat, had Haile Gebrselassie been in that park with all you guys, you basically got everybody from the 90s. And then you look at someone like Spencer Smith, who was just a machine in triathlon, just one of the all-time greatest triathletes, who I'll have to have on this show, actually.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
I'd love to have a chat. I'd love to have a chat with Spencer, and a wonderful guy. And his dad, Bill Smith, just one of the most passionate men you could ever meet. I never forget racing Spencer and "Go my boy" on the sidelines. He'd be screaming for his son, or "Go my son," I think he used to yell. But just a very passionate guy. So you just surrounded, you were totally immersed into the endurance culture. But at what point, you say you weren't a runner standard compared to the names that you've just dropped, but at what point did you say, actually, I have some strength in this triathlon business, and you started triathlon? And at what point did you go, hang on, I'm actually reasonably good at this?
I think it was actually when I was about 14, and Stewie Hayes said, if you do this duathlon, which luckily was just down the road, and you get top 6, they're going to select you for the European Duathlon Championships. And that was a youth. So I think it was 3K run, 15K bike, then 1500. And I was like, my mum said, yep, she'll pay for the entry, and she'll drive me there. I didn't have toe clips, so I did the whole race in my running shoes with those old rat traps. And I finished 6th, and Stuart Hayes finished 7th. Probably the biggest regret of his young career. And literally, there was this guy called Mick English, who was our team manager, and he had love tattooed on one hand knuckles and hate on the other. And he was from Derby, and he came up to me with Steve True and says, "Yeah, you're all right. We want you to come to Vuokatti in Finland to the European Champs. And I was like, yeah, I'll come. And they said, well, you've got to pay for it. And I was like, okay, let me talk to my mum. And my mum said, I think she was flustered. My dad wasn't there, which was probably a godsend. He would have said no. Yeah, my mum said yes. So that was when I got my first international cap. I went to the duathlon and it snowed in the race. I think the senior men then did a 14K run, 60K non-drafting, and then a 7K run. And I literally, they all got frostbite. I did the second run with my helmet on because I couldn't get it off. And I finished fourth. I finished fourth in Europe. I was like, this is amazing. But I was also the third British athlete. So I was still only fourth in Europe, but I was only third in Great Britain. And this is early season. So that year, I think it was 92 or 93. I then went to do all the local triathlons, which all the juniors did. There was no talent, no fun, no talent ID, no funding. You just race. That was your talent ID. You put your number on and you just give it some. And literally, like, I was so lucky. There were these guys called the Herbert brothers, Alex, Ben, and Russell, and they would just win everything. Then there was Simon Trundle, Mark Michelle. There was a guy who won the All English Schoolboy cross country, and he'd like won the British 10-mile time trial championships, but he could also swim. I was like the fifth or sixth best triathlete through kind of like 93, 94, 95, and 96, 97. I realized that, you know, I was the one that was willing to train. These guys had the talent, no doubt, but they weren't getting up as early as I was, and they weren't, you know, not training more. They all trained a lot more than me, but I was listening to my coach, so therefore, you know, I believed I was training better. And yeah, I think it was 97. I realized that, yeah, maybe something could happen.
I love that story. For me, it's fairly similar. I never won a race throughout high school. I never won a running race, nothing. But the guys I was running against were coming top 3 or 4. They were winning the national schoolboy championships, but then they were also finishing top 4 or 5 in the open championships. And so I never got a chance to win. And I've said it, excuse me for people who listen to this podcast a few times. It's like, I never learned how to win because I just always felt like I was there and loved it. I was passionate and wanted to be a part of it, but I didn't know how to win. It took me a long, long time to almost get that confidence and figure out the process of winning. But for you, the story's a little different because you say 97, you realize you had some strength and ability in the sport. A year later, you're winning the World Junior Championships. What was that like? I mean, that was an Olympic distance race. It wasn't a sprint race. So my point in mentioning that for people who don't understand is I think the sprint distance has a lot more just raw talent. Whereas when you start to get to the Olympic distance, there's a real training process that has to have taken place to gain the strength that you need, especially as a junior. So take me through that first major win at championship.
But even going back before then, in 1995, I was 17, racing a non-drafting Olympic distance in the under-20s World Champs. I finished 69th. Chris Hill won in Cancun and Craig Walton was second. I think I was like 9 minutes behind them. You know, I definitely had not learned to win the easy way, let me tell you that.
No, I love that. I love that. So I've got the results right in front of me, actually, now that you mentioned, there you are, 69th. Yes,
I think I was 69th.
You were 69th and you were 12 minutes behind Chris Hill, actually.
Oh, damn. The older I get, the closer I finish. I mean, like, look, I think they probably, they would have destroyed me on the swim and the bike. I was just a scrawny 17-year-old kid. I did the duathlon the week before. I think I was 25th there, so a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it started, it was the winter of 1997, 98. I went to Zimbabwe with Craig Ball, a very good friend, Richard Stannard, and a couple of other athletes.
Yeah, great.
A couple of other athletes. And I was they were like 3, 4, 5 years older than me. And I was training with these guys. They were racing French Grand Prix. They were doing all the small races in France, making money. You know, they had sponsors and stuff. And yeah, I think they opened my eyes to training professionally, following my coach's advice. And I remember I was training as well, if not a little bit better than them. And I remember them saying to me, Tim, you're training too hard. You can't be going this hard, this fast, this early. And I said, I'm doing what my coach says. And they kept on using this analogy of like, Tim, You got to plant the potatoes. You got to look after them, and you don't eat the French fries till the summer, till the season. And they kept on saying, "Oh, Tim's eating his French fries. He's going to have a terrible year." I was like, I don't know. I'm just doing what I'm told. And we all flew back to Europe after this big altitude camp of like 4 months. And it was the first race was the British University Champs. I wasn't at university, but there was an open race. And I remember racing it, and I wiped the floor with them. And they were like, "Holy shit, you were," oh, sorry. They were like, "Oh, wow. Like you were really ready." And like Craig Ball raced for Sartreville in France. I couldn't get a start in French Grand Prix. As you said, you didn't know who I was. Yeah, no one knew who I was. But he let me go over there, so I trained with them, and I met these two lovely guys called Tim Bentley and Andrew Noble.
The good Aussie boys. Yes.
Yeah, and they were kicking ass in Europe. More duathletes, but they were well, from the St. George Formula One, the Tui's Blue, they were amazing athletes, and they took me under their wing. We moved to Alpe d'Huez for 8 weeks with Craig, and like literally we trained the house down, and that's what gave me the confidence to believe in myself, was to believe in my training. And to this day, I always look back the day before, 2 days before, I always look back at my training and take confidence from the sessions I've done, and how I've built up to that I've got the foundation. And I did a race in Germany called the Schleswig Triathlon, which back then was a non-drafting race, a swim, hilly bike, but you finish with like a 5K proper alpine pass. And Bryce was there with Levi. I don't think Courtney was. And we did this press conference before, and they invited me because I'd been racing well in Europe that year. And I was like, "Look, I'm hoping to get round. This course is crazy." And these guys were like, "Yes, this is a stepping stone to becoming junior world champion." And I looked at Stuart going, "Oh my God, these Aussies are so professional. They're so good." And they've just landed. And there was a guy called Christoph Mausch and Eric van der Linden, and they took off on that last climb like mountain goats, especially Eric van der Linden. And I was like, "Do you know what? I'm going to chase them." So I went off with them. I lasted halfway up, and then they dropped me, but I dropped everyone else, and I got third in that race. And that was like 3 weeks before Lausanne, and that kind of really gave me the confidence to race on a hilly course in Lausanne. And I do remember that point with Bryce. I was running, I think, just behind Bryce with Stu, Courtney, and Levi. And I remember there was Miles Stewart, probably Chris McCormack, and yourself and all the Aussies there, contingent, shouting. Obviously, I had Lessin, who didn't cheer for anyone, as we know. So he wasn't there. AJ was, of course. But Lessin definitely wasn't cheering for me. He kind of like gave you the kind of like, "Yeah, don't worry." And I thought, "You cheeky bugger." And I think round the next corner, I thought, I'm going to lay it on. And I never looked back, and I just kept on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I raced in fear, and kind of like, it wasn't literally, if you look at the photo, if you Google Tim crossing the line, it wasn't literally till I crossed the line, I was like, I believed I'd won.
And at that point, was it like, okay, I know I can have a true professional career here? Was that like a real stamp of, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
I think there was no turning back for me in my mind. Again, going back earlier in the year, I was in great shape. I did the European Junior Duathlon Champs, and I attacked on the bike. I got away, and I thought, yes, I'm going to win this. And this dude overtook me with 500 meters to go, a German guy called Falk Cierpinski, who then went on to run at the Olympics for marathon. And I found out his father was Frank Shorter's nemesis, who beat him in not Montreal Olympics, in Munich Olympics. So, I got beaten into second, and I went to the European Duathlon Champs again. I was really up for it. The juniors don't race that much, but I knew I was in great shape. My bike got stolen like the evening before the race, so I had to borrow on a borrowed bike. The brakes were the wrong way round, left was rear. Yeah. All this, yeah. And I got second. So for me, it was more, I've proved to myself that, even though I got second, don't get me wrong, looking back, they're not bad results, second in Europe, but I really wanted to win. And I think that really gave me the confidence and the stepping stone to be the athlete I am, the person I am.
But it's quite incredible, because then you've gone off to qualify for the British Olympic team. And, you guys had a a tough team to make with Simon Lessing, who you mentioned before. Simon, for those who don't know, is one of the greatest triathletes of all time with 4 world titles, and just a guy that all of us struggled to beat in that mid to late 90s. Just an exceptional athlete across the board, swim, bike and run. And but you qualified for that Olympics, and you actually did incredibly well in Sydney. You were I think, was it 8th or 10th? 10th. What did that qualifying for that? Tell me about that first Olympics for you and qualifying, and just, was that something you'd always dreamed of, to be an Olympian and all of these kinds of things, or was it just kind of like, okay, tick another box?
No, I think, when I was younger and as an athlete, I always dreamed of going to the Olympics, but alas, my sport wasn't an Olympic sport. So I dreamed of being world champion and going to Kona. And it was actually Lausanne is where the IOC are based. And in 1998, the year I won Junior Worlds, that's when they announced that it was going to be an Olympic sport 2 years later. And I was like, I think Mark Jenkins, Richard Allen, there are a few other guys, Craig Ball, that were in the shout for that kind of third spot. But I was kind of very much an outside chance, but I kept on training. So, but the selection policy is quite funny. This is how dominant Simon Lessing was. Our selection policy is that the top ranked athlete in the world ranking was pre-selected, and the other two had to do a couple of selection races, which they announced, early 2000. But AJ was a good athlete in 98, 90. I think he was the European champ in 98. But Simon Lessing, I say that in all due respect, was a better athlete. But damn, AJ improved, and all of a sudden he's ranked ahead of Simon Lessing. Simon Lessing has to do these tiny selection races, and because of the way that we have to qualify 3 people, I had no world ranking because I was still a junior. The other guys had good world rankings, Mark Jenkins, Rich Allen, but not good enough to get that third spot. So Simon had to do some racing, and then they changed the policy to the top 2 ranked athlete just so Simon could be pre-selected. That's my opinion. I'm sure the selectors will say it was for a different reason. I did the 2 selection races. I won the first one, and the European champs, AJ won, of course, and Lessing didn't race, of course. And I was 5th, and I had to get like top 8 to guarantee it. And because I'd won the other one, I got selected. Yeah, that like Sydney Olympics, hands down, the best race. I mean, like the women raced the day before. McKeely, she got a silver medal. The Aussie triathlon in Australia is just massive. It was one of the only free. It was really hard to get tickets for everything. It was one of the only free events. I remember running. I wouldn't say the first. I run for a period with Robbo, and I was like, either he needs to drop me or I need to drop him because I'm getting deafened by Robbo. It was like, bloody hell. And I think luckily I did drop him. Yes, but I mean, the crowd, they were 5 deep for 5 kilometers on both sides of the road. It was just like running down St. George's Street or
Macquarie Street.
Yeah, it was just like and the race numbers are random. They draw them out of a hat. It doesn't mean anything. It's just your race number. Great Britain got pulled out first, so Simon was number 1, AJ number 2. I was number 3, so I was the 3rd person called onto the pontoon. It was just like, it was in. I know the Aussies hate us, but really they love us. And just looking behind me,
we love you, and we feel sorry for you when we're beating you. But when you're rugby and everything starts to become too good, now we hate you again. And the cricket, sorry. But mate, I want to move on a little bit then from that Sydney Olympic experience, probably to the most important and best and just the greatest world championship you ever won. And that was obviously the Duathlon World Championships in 2002 in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Easiest I won.
You bastard! So for those that don't know, this was a Duathlon World Championships in Alpharetta, Georgia. The rain came down like you wouldn't believe. We were running through deep water. I was having a reasonably good triathlon year that year. Decided to do Duathlon Worlds. I think they were 3 or 4 weeks before the Triathlon World Championships.
That's right. In Canada.
And I thought it'd be just a good hit up. It's a 10K run followed by a 40K bike, draft legal, and then a 5 kilometer run. And so I think I think all of us kind of ran together that first 10K. It was fast, but it wasn't out of control. I can't remember exactly what we ran. But the rain was just teeming down and really torrential by the time we got towards the end of the bike. And then we head out on the run. On the way back, so it was an out and back, 2.5K out, 2.5K back. All of a sudden, you and I move to the front, and we move in front of all these really world-known duathletes. All from Belgium. The Belgians seem to be the dominant force in the duathlon. And you turned to me, and what did you say? I'll never forget it. We were running flat out. I don't know how quick we were running. I'll make up a number and say we were running a 14-minute 5K. But I don't know what we were running. But it was definitely fast and through deep, deep water. And then you said to me, what did you say?
I just remember going, bloody hell, there's 2 triathletes leading the World Duathlon Championship. What is going on?
It wasn't bloody hell. It was some other words. But
yeah, it was some expletive, but I won't say. And you were like, shut up, Tim, and just race.
We had about a mile to go, maybe just over a kilometre to go, and here you were yelling at me, we're winning, and whatever. Yeah. I'm like, dude, and then you got me. We turned that right-hand corner. You had the better kick, and you took me, and you beat me by 1 second for that duathlon world title. I was like, you bastard! I needed one of those.
There were no mind games there. It was just real, because Benny Van Steelen, my gosh, soul. He was unbeatable. He would race however he wanted. And I was scared of him. Didn't know the GB duathletes. And at the race briefing, our team one, they were like, how are we going to race? And I said, I'm going to try and run with Benny, see what happens on the bike and just go out real hard. And they all laughed at me as if I was stupid. And I was like, you know what? You guys. Mike Trees was the only one that said, Tim, just stick to it. And everyone was afraid of him. So I was genuinely Greg, what the heck? We're doing this. Let's go.
I think I was the same attitude as you. I was like, oh, it's duathlon. I've focused my whole year on racing triathlon. Honestly, I didn't really care. I mean, it's like I've said in this podcast a few times. It's when you remove that expectation and it's freeing, and you can play and you can do whatever you want. And I remember just, getting off and going, okay, let's just run flat out. I mean, they were with us until 2.5K. I think you and I were behind them, and then they suddenly slowed up and we were like, oh. And I really remember that clearly. It was a real highlight. And then I think it was Cancun World Championships a few weeks later. And I remember you and I coming out of the water. Do you remember that? Dolphining?
Diving. Hey! I should be doing this. It's a world champs. I think I'd lost my goggles. I knew I was having a terrible swim, as much great run shape I was in. You can't win the race, but you can certainly lose it in the swim. I do remember that. And it's a lot of dolphin dives, that Cancun, the old course. Bloody hell.
Every time we jumped up, I'd hear this, hey! Right. That was hilarious, mate. And then, mate, you've gone on then to go to another couple of Olympic Games with Athens, and then you again qualify for Beijing. Your career is just, you've got wins throughout. You're all over the place. You do have some crazy results as well. I wouldn't say you're the Hamish Carter of the world that seemed to be top 5 every time you race, but you were there or thereabouts with some magnificent wins. Athens, Beijing. Now, going into 2012, was a hometown Olympics something that you wanted? I mean, now, for those that don't know, you had Alistair Brownlee and Jonathan Brownlee, probably 2 of the greatest triathletes we've ever seen in the world, come onto the British stage and makes that team a pretty tough team to get on. Was that still a focus for you?
Absolutely. I think when the Olympics happened in 2012, I was still ranked top 10 in the world ITU ranking. So, 2010, a silver medal at the World Sprint Champs, Johnny won. 2011.
Plus, let me add that 2010, you also won the High V.
Oh yeah,
Cup
I've still got the check in the garage.
It was like a $200,000 check, and against the best in the world. I don't know what it was.
Cash that actually now, shouldn't I? Really?
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I meant to say that when I said you had a few big wins. Well, that's an obvious.
You've had more. You've had the biggest season win ever, didn't you?
Well, I was fortunate, like you said. I think opportunity, talent, and work came at the right time. But yeah, and then 2012 then. So take me through that a little bit, because you didn't make the team, but like you said, your good friend Stuart Hayes, who to some degree got you into the sport, did make it. And I was very happy for Stewie, because he hadn't made an Olympics and you'd been to 3. But tell me about that process and what that was like.
I think by then, when I say it was very professional, I don't mean sponsorship and prize money and appearance fees and, commitments in terms of what we had to do for the federations. And outside of the Olympic Games, Great Britain was one of the most successful countries ever. I think we may have won more ITU World Champs than any other nation, maybe not. But we weren't crossing the line and winning medals at the Olympic stage. And that's what our funding, and it was there was a couple of £1 million budget for the 4 years. So unfortunately, they said, home Olympics, we really need to, we really need to try and, transfer these world titles, European titles and consistency into an Olympic Games medal. I was ranked top 10 in the world. I think Sydney ITU 2012, I think I got top 10. I think I got 8th or 6th in San Diego. So I was there or thereabouts. Johnny would beat me, Al would beat me when they would race, but I was, top 10 in the world. Any other country, they would have selected me. Unfortunately, I didn't always make the lead group, but I was strong on the bike, so I would drag people up. And basically the federation decided I was too much of a risk dragging people up. So they decided to select a domestique, and I said, no, that's not for me. How can, Javier Gomez, he can't have a domestique. Yeah, Alistair and Jonathan can. Simon Whitfield, he can't have a domestique, but, these guys can. So I said no. So it was Madrid World Cup, which I didn't actually finish. That's when, because Will Clark and Stuart Hayes were racing for Jonathan in the Olympic selection race while I was racing outright to make it. So unfortunately, they selected a domestique, Stewie Hayes. Did he impact the race? Absolutely not. Would they have still got first and third? Absolutely. I think the women was more gutting because Helen Jenkins had 2 domestiques. And I do think you miss you miss some younger talent or, that X factor. What if 2 years, I was still doing well. So it was a bittersweet thing. And ultimately that's what really made me turn to 70.3 and move into America early 2013 and eventually, racing Ironman.
It's an interesting discussion, isn't it? It's an interesting discussion, the domestics and you can kind of have some, I don't know if empathy is the right word, but for these sports directors that are basically, like you said, working with these multi-million-dollar, funding and told, we need medals, make it happen. And
literally.
And so then they've got this, this golden ticket with Alistair and Jonathan Brownlee, these brothers that have just, stormed onto the world stage. And it's basically, don't screw it up. It's like, and unfortunately, you're the one that, pays the price for that kind of a mindset. And look, you're not the first one to miss out on Olympic teams, for people that deserve it and this kind of thing. And, both Laura and myself had those, I was number 2 in the world in 2000 Olympics. Laura had finished 2nd at the World Championships the year before and then 3rd at the World Championships and still missed the Olympics in 2004. There's this, it happens a lot. There's a lot of these conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think Alistair was always going to win. I think, I think the way he handled that pressure and everything is one of the great sporting moments that we had in triathlon. I think the ability to handle that kind of pressure and still perform, still run that whatever he ran, a 29:06 or something
with doing most of the work on the bike.
with doing swimming and biking like he does was extraordinary. I mean, I feel for you not to have a 4-time Olympics, but I don't know, mate. I still look at you and I go, hang on, because the best part about your journey is it was still far, far from over. And look, it's still going right now. But my point is that you transitioned then incredibly well to the 70.3 side of things with you've got a 2nd and a 3rd. Is that what you have at 70.3 was?
2
thirds. Excuse me. Yes. 1/3 behind Jan and Javier and then 3rd behind Javier and Ben Canoe. That's correct. That's right. And you've won boatloads of 70.3s, correct?
Yeah. I don't know how many, but I've won a few.
That's a lot when you don't know how many. And so what was that transition like? Was it in terms of both the physical, like, because I see you as someone who's always been a racer, somebody that just loves to race. Whereas when you start to go longer, it starts to become a little bit more hold back. And I know personally I struggled with that. And even the 70.3s I won, I quite often went, it didn't have that same oomph that winning a World Cup or an Olympic non-drafting big money race kind of did. Was that the same for you, or did you transition no problem?
No, absolutely. I mean, I took my 2-year-old daughter and my wife. We moved to Boulder. I'd been there once in 2002, and I took Kelly there for a week at the end of 2012 just to make sure she was happy. We moved there. We emigrated, had a work visa. It was a big risk. Started to work with Judy Dibbons. That first year, I mean, I always say 70.3 training, not Ironman. So it's very simple. It's not easier. It's simple because there's not as much of variability in your training, and if you miss a couple of seconds here or there on your goal times, you're in the ballpark, so it's good enough. And yes, exactly what you were saying. I really struggled with slowing down, with holding consistent power for 90k rather than that up down. And that first year, I was fighting Julie, with my philosophy and her philosophy. I remember I would often get dropped on the bike in that first year, or if I came off with them, everyone was expecting me to show some 28-minute 10K form, which, I've shown in the past. And I was running like 120s, and Richie Cunningham, Joe Gambles, these guys, they were schooling me on the run. And it did take the whole of 2013 and that winter to kind of start focusing on my position, on nutrition, but also just kind of slowing down, and fast isn't always better. I remember doing those miles on Monarch off the bike, running 5-minute flat and finishing, the last couple sub 5. But I was still running 120s, off the bike. That first year really. And then, as you said, I'm a racer. I love bloody racing. I love it. And I'm used to racing in Hamburg, Madrid, Tokyo. These amazing cities at 2:00 in the afternoon. The whole city slows down to watch the professional races. They're live on television in England and in Germany and all of these countries. And I would go to Quasi 70.3 in the middle of a theme park in a muddy field at 5 a.m. And I'm going, this is not what I signed up for.
I know. I must admit, I struggled with that. I struggled with that whole.
I'm going, what's going on?
Yeah, it is almost a mindset difference too, isn't it? That kind of
Absolutely.
where you are used to all the hype and the blue carpet of the. I mean, when you
press
leave
conferences.
you leave the ITU World Series, the Olympic Games, and then you start focusing on some of these races, and they're well put on. I'm not judging them for what they are, but the difference of what the World Series and all the hype around them and the TV and media to suddenly you're kind of running down a street and there's a golf clap on the side of the road, and it's like, oh,
absolutely.
I kind of, you mentioned running down Macquarie Street at the Olympic Games in Sydney, and it's definitely to now you're winning a race in, for me, it'd be like winning maybe Lubbock, Texas. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, I won. Hi, everybody. Do I raise my hands? Because there's only 8 people at the finishing line, No, I feel like a wanker if I'm throwing my hands in the air, and it's because but yeah, it is a different kind of style of racing. What I did love about that style, though, is it did, like you kind of mentioned before, and Hamish Carter mentioned it when he was on the show, when we grew up in the early 90s doing the sport, it was like the Wild West. And it was this sense of real community, that we were all in it together. We were all doing this crazy obstacle course called a triathlon, and we're doing something silly on a weekend. And for me, I think doing the 70.3s or even the non-drafting series that I did a lot of in the US, it was very grounding to come back to what the sport is about, the grassroots, and finishing the race. And in the next half hour, all the age group athletes would come in, everyone asking how you went, you'd ask how they went. And it was it's far more festive. Whereas, as much as the ITU stuff was very professional, I kind of felt like it was a little removed from the things that I truly loved about the sport. So for me, I loved coming back to that kind of part of the sport. What about yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's totally, once I realised, it's not Formula One, it's Paris Dakar. Oh no, I mean, I loved it, and I got to meet all new people. I'd raced all over the world in the same cities for the last 15 years, but it was the same people, a couple of new people here and there. Like our office just moved from city to city. Well, this was new people, new experiences, new challenges. And it was these muddy fields, these race briefings with, a couple of hundred people there, rules that were different, but they were the same for everyone, courses that were same for everyone. I was at the stage where I was a bit more relaxed, I think. And I was a bit worried because I'd like not given up a lot, but, I basically tried to reinvent myself by moving to America professionally. And I do remember that year in 2013, I don't know where it was. I didn't have a great race and I was in the airport and there was Lava magazine and Bevan Doherty was on the front cover. I was like, bloody legend. And I remember reading it saying this up-and-coming triathlete, Bevan Doherty, is doing well in 70.3. He might have a shot at Ironman. And I was like, if this two-time Olympian who has won medals, he's been world champion in he's won world champion and Olympic medals, is called an up-and-coming athlete. God help me. And I was like, is that how America sees ITU? Do they not realize it is the future of Ironman? It's the future of 7.3. And it was eye-opening, but I definitely, although I've done most of my career doing ITU, my fondest memories are racing 70.3 and Ironman, believe it or not.
Isn't that funny? Let's fast forward a little bit because I do want to chat about Brazil in 2017. We touched on it earlier, but take me through that race, mate. Just look, I've rated you always as one of the great runners of our sport, hands down. And like you said, you've run that, I think it was a 28:07 or something you did in a 10K fun run. Tell me, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, 28:56, but Haile Gabri Selassie only beat me by 50 seconds.
That's right, only 50 seconds, not even a lap of the track.
I'll take that.
I would too, mate. I remember watching that. But then I've always looked at you, and then I looked at you, your swim, you and I were probably fairly similar. We'd have days where we were front pack comfortable, other days where we've screwed up, whatever. The swim was up and down. But
you get good, we're racers. You get good feet, the good vibe. Swim, otherwise you're chasing for the first 10K.
But I'd watched your bike, when you'd come over to do a couple of the Minneapolis non-drafting races in the US, and I thought, you're a reasonable biker, but I never thought much of it. That's not fair. I would say you were average. You weren't an Uber biker.
Cheers, mate.
I wasn't looking at you as one of those guys that's going to rip off the front with this amazing bike split. But then you've trained relentlessly with, you said, your coach Julie Dibbins, and is it Matt Botchell? Who's your coach?
Yeah, Matt Botchell. Yeah,
in the UK on the bike, to have this performance in Brazil. A 7 hour, 40 minutes, 23 seconds. What were the splits and just what was your mentality on that day? It's just insane.
I think I won my first ever Ironman in 2014, and then I got second in Brazil the year before. Crazy fast time. Brent McMahon he won, beat me by 20 minutes, and I got second. He ran, I think he went 7:45, 7:44. He just missed the world record by a couple of seconds, a handful. So we knew the course was fast. I raced for a Brazilian team. I love racing. I'd raced a lot in Brazil. One of my, going back to Craig Ball, who again was very instrumental in my early career in 98 when I lived with him in France. He actually coached me for 2 years leading up to Athens Olympics, which was, my first ever World Cup win, which you were there, St. Anthony's, 2003. He was actually my coach then.
Yeah.
And he then left the sport, very successful businessman, but he wanted to get fit again because he'd put on 20 kilograms, realized he can do triathlon, got into time trialing, and he said, Tim, this guy is amazing. You need to do a Skype with this guy and you need him to coach you on your bike. That's what you need. I was like, no way, but since it's you. Anyway, I had the Skype with this guy, Matt Botchell. I was on the Skype for him for about 2 hours, and straight away I knew something clicked. Now I had to persuade Julie to work with another coach. Coaches don't often play nicely with other coaches. Physios don't play nicely with other physios. It takes a very special coach. And Julie did a Skype with him and me and had a think about it. And anyway, the three of us started working together. We changed a lot. And we really worked on my pacing, my position. We also worked on my power profile. There were certain areas I was very good at, but others that I was absolutely terrible at, the steady threshold, sweet spot, things like that. So yeah, it took a year and a half, but yeah, we worked my bike to the point where he predicted my bike time using various websites and my training, my CDA, my power, my threshold. And he was about a minute and a half off the bike time, which was 4:06 in Brazil.
Was he fast or slower? Was he fast or
he was slower? He was slower. I know, yeah, I didn't think about it like that. But as he when he started to work with me, he said, "Tim, I've never worked with anyone who races like you do. You just have that ability to raise yourself from your training, whether it's the swim, the bike, or the run. If I want you to average, 300 watts." You somehow average 305, and it's the same, you shouldn't be able to swim on, Cam Dye's feet, but, when I feel like I can sit on Cam Dye's feet. So going into that race, I knew I was in phenomenal shape because I trained through St. George, Utah, which is the North American champs. And I finished 4th there. But Alistair won. I think Lionel was 2nd, and Sebi was 3rd. And I dropped lots of good bikers on the bike and had a good run. But I totally trained through it, and it was 3 weeks before Brazil. So we knew everything was in the right way. I'd run every race I'd done that year except for St. George. So I turned up. I knew the course. I was happy there. I love racing in Brazil. The team was so supportive. And I knew it was a fast course. There were some good swimmers there who just wanted to swim fast. They weren't worried about the rest of the race. So I got on their feet. It's a fast swim. We swam 44 minutes. I knew I had to be first out of T1 onto the bike and just get my head down. I rode, I think, the first 40K at kind of like 70.3 watts. So for me, that's just over 300 watts. Then there were lots of out and back, so I could see they weren't really catching. They played cat and mouse a lot, and while they were doing that, I just kept my head down. It is a fast course, I came off the bike having averaged the power that they wanted me to average, about 4.2 watts a kilo, and I felt good. So I ran really hard, and there's a big out and back. It's like, I think 9K out, 9K back. And then you do 2 laps of kind of 10K or whatever the rest is, 2.5 laps. And on the out and back, I looked at my watch and I was like, right, so if I see someone after I've been running a minute, I've got a 2-minute lead. And I remember going, where the hell is everyone? And I think at that stage, I had like a 19 or 20-minute lead. And I was like, oh, wow. I really wanted to win the race. I genuinely didn't have a clue what the world record was. I knew it was around 7:45, 7:44. I had no idea what it was. I just wanted to win the race. And I was like, Tim, even if I run, 4:10K pace and these guys run really, like 3:45, they're still not going to catch me. Just be confident. Slow down. Just stay within yourself. And I ran past the team hotel, and there's a guy called Frank Jacobson who coached most of the team, next level coaching. He works with Crowe Sanzigo. Absolutely. Couldn't get a more genuine, kind person within the sport of triathlon. And he goes, Tim, if you could run a 2:48, you're going to break the record. And I was like, hey, thanks, cool. What record? And he was like, the world record. What, are you stupid? And I was like, oh my God. And then I carried on running, and I was like, oh my God. I looked at my watch and my polar, I shouldn't say that. My GPS stopped working. And I was like, and then I looked and I'm running 3:10 a K. Then I'm running 5 minute a K. And obviously it was going, I don't know why it was going haywire. And I was just worried. And yeah, with a mile to go, someone I knew there said, Tim, you're so close. Come on, you can break this record. You're going to do it. And I'm like, what is so close in an Ironman? And it kind of slowed down. What is so close in an Ironman? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 5 minutes? And I was like, okay, keep pushing. And this time I knew my pace had dropped off, but I was still running kind of round, 4:05, 4:10 a K. And I thought, I'm going to turn in the finish chute. And if I'm nowhere near it, I'm just going to walk the finish chute. But if I'm close to it, I'll push on. Turned into the finish chute. and the clock was facing the cameras, the media, not me. And I'm like, everyone's going, when you win a race, even, the Brazilians are going Brazilian Wild Star. So I just ran as fast as I could. And then I stopped my watch and I was like, 2:44. He said 2:48. And I looked back and I saw 7:40. And I was like, I don't know what the world record is, but I've run a 2:44. And then someone says, you have got the world record. And I was like, oh my God. And it was more relief than kind of like, I'm the man. And yeah, it was like, it was like, and for the next 20, 22 minutes while I waited for Carl Buckingham, he finished second. It was just like, wow, my friends who I had down there were still racing. So I was like on my own, kind of like, just like total kind of like,
what do I do?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Was your manager Franco or Kelly there, your wife there? Or
No. By then, we had 2 children. So Hugo and Matilda. So it's just too expensive to fly all the way to, and Brazil is probably like a 17-hour journey from Boulder. Franco was there the year before, but he didn't come that year. I was there on my own. But no, when the team finished and they all had great races, Fabio Cavella, he was, I think he was 8th, and that qualified him for Kona. Obviously, in the old school, I'd qualified for Kona, so that was the goal of the team, to get as many of us to Kona, and we'd qualified. Susie Cheetham, she won the women's, so it was great to have I didn't know her that well then, but she then, after that race, she started working with my bike coach, Matt Bottrell. It really gave me confidence. And it was great to, really let Julie and Matt look at the numbers and say, look, this is what we said you were going to do. And this is what you did. This is the training you did. When you ran, that 36K on Magnolia Road and averaged 4:10 a K and your average heart rate was 136, we told you were in great shape. When I could drop an hour at 300 watts in a 200K ride and feel good, they said, it gave me the confidence to believe that I could maybe do something special at Kona in 2017.
It's nice when you have that kind of data feedback. Okay, so what did Matt Bottrell give you a time that he thought you were going to do in Kona 2017? I know you didn't get to race, as we've discussed, but did he give you a time before?
No, I don't think we've ever talked. He would have definitely done his maths and worked it out, but no, I should ask him. I think it was, I think I was swimming real well. So it was to kind of swim with that lead group and do as little as possible to stay with that lead group. And then, I think the big thing that had changed between Brazil to Kona, and it showed at the World 70.3s, was my run had just really come on. Kind of like the bike work had almost been done for Kona. We were just maintaining with a few top up key sessions, but we were really working the run and the swim, because we realized, with Dylan McNeice, with Josh Amberger, with Jan, with Tio, these guys, you had to swim that fast. And then, the World 70.3s gave me massive confidence to my run to, finish within, I don't know, I think it was a minute and a half of Javi. I was over the moon with that. But c'est la vie. We'll never know.
No, we won't. But it's fun for us to go. Yeah, you would have crushed it, and you would have been the first to break 8 hours and blah blah blah.
First British male.
Yeah. So, mate, we've discussed. There's so many things I've got a whole list of things I wanted to talk to you about. But we've been chatting for so much of your time, and I know you've got the 2 little ones. We've talked about your team with Franco and Kelly and your sponsors and Julie and Matt Bottrell and just so many people that you've surrounded yourself with. Marcus Mejias, you mentioned, who I always love to give a shout out to on this show, just one of the greatest massage therapists and greatest people I know that helped you, especially after breaking your neck. Am I missing anybody else in terms of your team and the support? You got incredible.
No, John Dennis, he's a physio I've worked with in England. He flew out to America yearly, but when I broke my neck a couple of times, within our careers, there are so many people that have pivotal roles. Brett Sutton, he gave me the confidence to race ITU. Dr. Nicholas Romanoff, post method of running, he gave me the pure speed when I was younger. We can talk about these people that no one knows, but you can't name them all. Yeah. So thanks.
And your sponsors have all stuck with you. You've got obviously On Running, and is it? You still with Specialized Bikes and?
Still with Specialized. On still with Oakley. I signed with them in 1998 when I won Junior Worlds. I've got, obviously, things change, wetsuit manufacturers and whatnot. But what's really good is 99% of the time when it's inevitable, you change brands, whether you get a massive deal or they go a different way marketing, or they just not, you just don't have the results that they wanted, But I love it when I meet lots of the guys I used to work with, or people I've never worked with, but they're sports marketing. Everyone's just so blooming friendly in triathlon. There's a guy called Janos who's the head of Scott Global Marketing, and he has been for as long as I can remember. And I've never ridden Scott. He used to work for BMC. I've never ridden BMC. We always go for a bike ride in Kona. We always have a breakfast. And it's a sport like that. In track and field, you don't get like Mo going out with an Adidas rep or a Bonn rep. It is a community-based sport. And I'm 42 now. It has been and will always be it will be my life, my family's life, triathlon. Look what you're doing now, how you're giving us the ability to share these stories.
Reconnecting with them. I also see that you're one of the sponsors of my show is Athletic Greens that I'm using every morning too. You paired up with them this year?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Andrew in Beijing, he's the guy I've been dealing with, top guy, an Aussie.
Yeah. I know Andrew. I interviewed him actually when I was working at the Beijing Triathlon as an age group triathlete. It just happened to be that. Yeah. And then, so for me, the same. He's a wonderful guy. Yeah. So he got
and the product, I mean.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, triathlon stress is enough, but when you've got two kids in lockdown trying to homeschool, you have a little bit too much gin, a little bit too much red wine. I just need to get the goods. You're only as good as what you put in, and I'm a big believer of athletic screens. It's simple, it's easy, and you know what? It doesn't taste that bad as well.
It tastes fantastic. Yeah. Well, mate, I did want to chat to you about. I'm going to have to. The next time we do this. I don't know if you remember, 99, I came and stayed probably a week with you, with Andrew Johns.
Every day.
Right. It was your 21st birthday. Every night we went out. I remember going to the Hard Rock Cafe and I don't know, we all said, I think it was Craig Ball, Andrew Johns, myself, or whoever it was there was a whole group of us. And every night was your 25th birthday. And every night you got free drinks or whatever you got. And I'll never forget, actually, that Hard Rock Cafe, leaving going, gosh, that was a 25-pound burger and beer or whatever we had. I'm like, that's 75 Australian dollars. I was like, oh my God. It was so expensive, but that was a fun week. I remember, I don't know when that was in 99.
That was awesome. Yeah.
I do remember that. I have so many.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I do remember that. That was brilliant.
I know I was on you for quite a while to get you onto this, for a chat. And
I know. Yeah.
A lot of that was just because I did want to just share so many great stories and memories with you. We could go into the details of your nutrition and body work and everything else, but I think we're going to just have to do that on a couch after doing a bike ride with a couple of beers in a year or two, when all this craziness with the COVID stuff is over. But mate, been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I know we kind of glossed over your 2006 World Championship that you won. We glossed over the 2008 Olympics where, you got sick. There's so many great stories that you have to share, but I think, being that you've got a couple of kids that you need to get to bed, I think I better let you go. How do people follow you or interact with you these days? I can put it in the show notes, but just, is it Tim Don? What are you?
Distancing, at least 2 meters. Try the Don on Instagram and try the Don on Twitter, and I think Tim Don Fast Coaching on Facebook. Mostly Instagram these days. That's what the cool kids and the young kids like. So I try my best, but I'm not the best at it.
Apparently, I know. And then anybody that truly, the work they did, the man with the halo, look it up. You can find it on your website, timdon.com, but I think it's all over the website, over Google or whatever. The man with the halo. Take some time out to go watch it. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think there's some documentaries that might come out corny or they don't feel fantastic, but I watched it and it brought a tear to my eye, and I'm not the most emotional guy when it comes to stuff like that, so it really was a fantastically well done documentary. So anybody that wants to look at timestamps or show notes, I'll have them on bennettendurance.com/media. Tim Don, mate, this was absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thanks, buddy.
Hey, no, thanks for having me. And always good to chat triathlon. And especially someone who's been around as long as I have. Longer.
Longer. I know, mate. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.